a few from DC, and I have no idea where the other is, but that's very cool that we're outside the DMV, so that's very good. And about half of us participating this evening have connected to adoption or foster care or kinship care. So it's 50-50. Thank you for participating in that. Andrea, thank you for giving us the overview and the statistics. I'd now like to just give us an overview of the evening program. So we are going to have some incredible music from Greg. We're going to hear about the C.A.S.E work in our community. We're going to hear from one of our clients, and I think that you will be very impressed and very touched. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A, like was mentioned just a little earlier. And then, of course, I will ask for help if you can give, and then we'll end with music and a thank you to you. But I'd like for Tamara right now, who's our Director of Development, to talk about our special guests and to acknowledge them. Tamara?
Sure. I'm behind the scenes, so when I stop sharing in a moment, you'll be able to see me, but we'd like to welcome and, of course, thank our wonderful host this evening, Catherine Leggett, who's also the co-chair of our Growing Together campaign. And we'll be hearing directly from Debbie Riley, our CEO, and from Rachel Schifferau, a C.A.S.E emerging leader. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Phil Gibbs, who's joined us this evening, who's our co-chair of the Growing Together campaign. Mike and Kathleen Dugan, our founders and board members. And we're joined by a number of board members. I won't call out everyone, but I do want to acknowledge Kathy Ravenscroft, our vice chair, and Tracy Peschke, secretary of our board of directors.
Tamara, thank you very much. So before we get started with hearing this incredible music, if you have a glass, I'd like for you to raise it. It could be coffee, it could be tea, it could be champagne, it could be wine, it could be whatever you want. And I want to give a toast to tonight. I want to give a toast to C.A.S.E for helping the families in our community. I want to give a toast to each one of you for spending time with us this evening. I want to give a toast to the opportunity that we have for helping those in need. And most importantly, I want to say, in this time, in this very unprecedented time, may our positive energy touch the hearts of those in need. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well said.
Thank you. And now, after we enjoyed that wonderful drink.
Yeah, wonderful.
Have a little more,
Wonderful
Catherine.
We are going to hear from Greg, Jennifer, Pepe, and Mark. They are going to give us a tribute for this evening. I want to thank Greg for volunteering his time to help C.A.S.E, to help those in need. This is a guy who's incredibly talented, and we are very grateful for him being with us tonight. Greg?
We need to clap.
They can clap. I mean, I am so impressed that they would give their time, come to a church, play for us, for the mission of C.A.S.E. And Greg, we're very thankful to you and very appreciative of your being with us this evening. I would like to introduce to all of us Debbie Riley, who is the CEO of C.A.S.E. Debbie and Kathleen Dugan started C.A.S.E. in 1998. They had a vision to lift up the community and to help foster children and adopted families, because they knew that there was this need in the community that really needed to be addressed. Debbie is a renowned speaker. She is engaged internationally and nationally. She works with families and children, and she is a therapist by profession. But before Debbie comes on, I'd like for you to see a video that was produced by WUSA Channel 9 about the impact that C.A.S.E. has on children, families, and the communities. Let's listen to the video, and then we'll see Debbie after that.
C.A.S.E. provides very specialized support services for the foster and adoption community. We're now treating over 500 children a year in the Washington, D.C. area.
I chose to adopt because I wanted to raise children. And I'm single, but I still wanted to have an impact on the world by helping to raise children. They sent me this picture of Brandon and Brianna when they were little. Brandon was 5, Brianna was 3. C.A.S.E. prepped us for adoption, you know, helped us understand what we were going into, helped us to know how to take care of each other as a family, but it really has helped me build a family and to help my children feel comfortable as an adopted family.
Right now we have waiting lists in all of our offices. We have families that drive 2 and 3 hours to seek our support, and we would love to be able to open offices throughout the state of Maryland, D.C., and Virginia.
Thanks, Catherine, for that warm, embracing welcome and acknowledgement. And thank you all again for attending. And I do want to shout out, we had 2 extra board members join, Umo Aliwaya and Judge Beverly Woodard. So we welcome you as well to our evening. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the impact of where we are as an organization. You know, I began to think about when I looked at the date of March 13th and when all of our worlds were impacted by COVID. And I thought, well, how long ago was that? And I said to myself, oh, maybe it was 10 weeks. And then I looked back at the calendar about an hour ago and I realized that, you know, we're about 19 weeks that the pandemic really has impacted all of our worlds, each of us. And it really turned our world upside down here like a pancake at C.A.S.E. You know, we, as the video showed, we were already supporting such vulnerable children. And now to have this pandemic impact their lives, we saw a quick spike in the already mental health needs that we were servicing here at C.A.S.E. The demand for our services has increased just over those 19 weeks by 9%. And we are proud that we were very quickly able to convert all of our service delivery to virtual. So what we're experiencing right here tonight is what we do here day in and at night. You know, I'm used to doing, you know, the virtual service delivery through telehealth here at C.A.S.E. We began to think not only of those that we were servicing locally, but also our national presence. And we began to launch some free services as well in the educational domain, webinars across the country. And we've reached you know, close to 5,000 families and professionals that have joined our educational forums like you are. We launched parent support groups for parents throughout the Washington, D.C. metro area. And, you know, I have to say that many of you are parenting yourselves, that we have a very stressed parenting population who are trying to figure out, you know, how do they survive as teachers, as coaches, as entertainers, and also hold down employment and support children who, as I said, are struggling with issues around, depression. We've seen high rates of kids running away. We've had children attempt suicide. We've had kids needing to be hospitalized and also engaging in self-harming behaviors. So you can imagine in your own world how this pandemic has impacted you. But again, thinking about the children who've come from compromised beginnings already, the impact that this has. And then we did something really creative where as we were shutting things down here, it was really hard to leave our space. I'm here tonight. I began to think about what we could do to further support our parents and decided that we would do virtual story time. So who was going to read the books to the kids? Well, I was here. So I had one of our staff videotape me, and we began to create story time for younger children that we could give some of the parents a break. And the really cool thing was we decided, well, wouldn't it be great if we could reach out to the larger community and see if anybody else would want to engage in reading books to young people. And so we got Congressman Anthony Brown to read a story. We got the CEO, Deborah Waller of Jockey International, to read. She's an adult adoptee herself. And then really cool, a couple weeks ago, we were able to get Simone Biles. She herself was adopted, came from foster care, and read a wonderful story to our children and families. So these are just a few things that we've done in a very proactive way to continue to support the families that we care so much about here at C.A.S.E. So from a sort of fiscal implication of COVID, we have doubled the monthly outlay for clinical financial assistance. So you probably maybe can see Kathleen and Mike, they're somewhere here on the screen, and they're the only ones that are sitting out near water because they're in Florida. But as the co-founders, they've had a commitment to making sure that we don't turn away anyone. And so we've had a vibrant scholarship fund to help support children and families. And this financial assistance has really been tapped dramatically during COVID. Just so far in the 6 months, we've serviced over 56 clients and families during this period of time. And we've also unfortunately experienced $1.3 million in funding cuts. So, and I anticipate that as we see the future of the financial implications, that there may be more of these cuts along the way. Our largest fundraiser, our gala, had to be postponed, and I'm not sure that we're really going to be able to pull it off. It's set for October 16th, but doesn't look very good. And on the positive side, we were able to be very proactive again in garnering about $588,000 in emergency support, and did receive one of the PPPs. So that was a positive. And then the most, I think, uplifting piece for us right now is one of our campaign members has provided a very interesting challenge grant through the Carol M. Jacobson Foundation, recognizing the need for our scholarship funds to continue, that if we could raise $100,000, they will contribute $50,000 to keep the scholarship fund very fluid. So I hope that gives you a quick sense of where we are, what we've done, and what the need is. So thank you, Catherine, for that, again, introduction. And now I'd like to share an opportunity for you to hear from Rachel Chaparro, who is one of our emerging leaders at C.A.S.E. Rachel is an adult adoptee herself, and also is a contributor to one of our recent publications where we created a teen workbook that was really very powerful stories from those teens that we supported. And Rachel was one of those young people that decided to share her story with adopted teens all over the country. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel.
Thanks, Debbie. Hi. Thank you guys for all coming tonight. It's such a great cause to be here, something that in my heart I truly believe in. So I'm super glad that everybody came to catch up with us and listen to some music. About me personally, I was adopted from Chile as an infant. So I came to America when I was about 6 weeks old. And I was adopted into a Caucasian Jewish family. So I was converted to Judaism and raised in a very traditional Jewish household. This is great. I had a great family, great parents, but I always felt very out of place, very different which presented a number of problems for me. And that got me involved in drugs and alcohol and a lot of things that totally were not great to be involved with. I think as a kid growing up, I was struggling so hard, and I was trying to find places where I belonged, places where things maybe seemed a little bit certain. As an adult adoptee, I can look back on my childhood and feel like things were very shaky. Everything was always very uncertain. Everything was very rocky. I knew way more about loss before I even knew what loss meant than I care to admit, because I had lost a biological mother, an entire culture, an entire country. Everything that was me was kind of taken away and then recreated. So I grew up with this uncertainty of the world that I was living in. I didn't know, was this going to be my new reality? What if I misbehaved? Would this send me back to an old reality? Like, where was the solid ground for me? And I just didn't have that. It was something that I struggled with for so long. When the pandemic hit, I think the first thing that I went back to personally was thinking about my adolescent self and thinking, how would I deal with that compounded uncertainty on top of the uncertainty that I was already feeling because I was adopted and I just didn't know if this was my permanent home, if this was a place that I'd be for forever. So I think about these kids and I can't imagine what they're experiencing. And when I hear from Debbie that they're having runaways or suicides that are increasing, or suicide attempts that are increasing, and just general spikes in anxiety, depression, overall mental health problems, it totally triggers a lot for me. As an adult, I've had years of therapy, plenty of coping mechanisms, but I can't imagine what these kids are going through. Super trying time for everybody. I know even as an adult, I constantly worry. I have two moms. I'm in reunion with my biological mom, and I have my adopted mom. And I constantly am at fear. What if I don't get back to Chile? What if I don't get to go see my biological mom? What if one of my mothers doesn't make it through this? It's super tough, super uncertain, super scary times, but definitely a time in my life where I feel like I know why C.A.S.E is so important. C.A.S.E has always felt like home to me. It's a place where I don't feel different, where everybody can relate to me, nobody's judging me, and that's been a wonderful thing. So I'm thankful to be here for tonight. I hope that we can get these kids, help this organization to get these kids the therapy that they need so they can find that stabilized environment, that concrete ground that they're so desperately grasping for. And I hope that we can do it before they start reaching out for things like drugs and alcohol and all the things that became very problematic in my life.
Thanks, Rachel, for sharing that personal, the deep personal aspects of your story. And we can't thank you enough. As I said, Rachel is an emerging leader. We just started an emerging leader program at C.A.S.E, hopefully that we would attract, young people like Rachel with lived experience to move on to our board of directors. And I know one day she's going to be sitting on this board and really make yet another realm of impact. So thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Well, this is the exciting part of the evening where all of you get to participate and ask questions. And a big thanks to Debbie and Rachel for sharing their perspectives and information about the work of C.A.S.E. But since we know that half the people coming this evening don't have a connection to adoption and foster care or kinship families, or may even know what does the word kinship family, what is that, and doesn't know necessarily what that means or understand all of the intricacies behind this, now is your chance to ask questions. Since we are a smaller group, I'm going to moderate the questions. You can, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and then I'll call on you and you can unmute and ask your questions. And if you're more shy, you can also put your question in the chat and I'll be watching the chat for questions. And so, Barb, I think you wanted to, start us off and had a question. Go ahead.
I do. Rachel, thank you for sharing your story. I think what I'm wondering is, you were talking now, even on the impact of the pandemic in your adult life and how it surfaces new stressors. What strategies are working for you right now? What's helping you to get through this pandemic that we're all experiencing?
So truthfully, I think that for me, I just, like I mentioned, therapy is a big thing. I'm 37 and I've been in therapy since I was 4. So I feel like I've been like feeding therapists and their families for quite a long time now. But it's been super important to me to go to therapy, and my therapy has switched over to telehealth, which is different, but super awesome that it's even available. And I think that it's been a very important part of my weekly routine to get into my therapy and be able to discuss my concerns, kind of put my feelings out there, and kind of adjust the tools that I have from therapy to kind of guide me through this.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question here for Debbie. Debbie, I'd like to get a sense of how does the need for financial assistance compare with last year?
Well, it's a great question, Kathy. As I shared thus far, we're supporting about 56 families now, just halfway through the year. And last year, for the whole year, we served, under about 40 some. Right now, we're expending close to $10,000 a month, where we're providing financial aid, as compared to about $4,000 a month last year. So, we're beginning to see families that are losing employment, just have lots of fiscal implications, and also the intensity of their services have, as I said, increased. So instead of, it's interesting, Rachel said, I'm still seeing my therapist, weekly. For some of our families, we're seeing them maybe 2 or 3 times a week to support them. So you can imagine, what the cost of that then is.
Well, and that is a great segue to a question that came in the chat. And someone did ask that during these volatile times, are new clients coming on board? Are you seeing more an increase with existing client visits? And I think you've mentioned that, Deb, but how are we handling new clients coming in? And do we have new people coming into this brave new world of telehealth?
So yeah, I mean, we have new clients coming in all the time, and it's interesting because, as Rachel said, we're all virtual now, and that's a hard thing for a family or a young adult to get used to. We're used to being together with our clients, so it's been more challenging. But I think that C.A.S.E's reputation is one that we're here to serve, and families are reaching out on a consistent basis now.
Are there other questions? I'm looking, you can wave a hand, you can put something in the chat. I think I saw Phil's hand first. Go ahead, Phil.
Debbie, of the 10,000, you're suggesting that we're deploying $10,000 a month for scholarship assistance.
Yeah.
10,000, and how much goes to each family? Does it vary from family to family?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does vary. So, some families are, their fee is reduced by 100%, and others it could be partially, depending what their financial situation is. And again, the other thing that I want to point out is many of our families, because they embrace adoption, adopt more than one child. So we might have a family that might have 4 children that are being seen here. All children are being seen by different therapists, as well as a therapist seeing the family. So it can get quite expensive. Now, we do have contracts and grants with the different child welfare agencies in the area. But as I shared, we, as the states are being impacted fiscally, we're beginning to see some of those funds decrease. And we had a significant decrease in Virginia this year, where literally the state stopped providing fiscal support for children in the mental health area for foster care and adoption right now. So.
And Phil, it is on average about, because we were looking at this and based on need, that it is about 60% on average. If you look, from the range of people getting 100% versus 10% reduction, the average reduction in our fee is about 60% this year, based on financial need.
Because
and I think, yeah, go ahead.
That brings another question. You know, the challenge for especially for families that have more than one child in getting services. The other aspect is developing a navigator position of some sort to help people get help from their insurance companies, because most people don't know how to process the paperwork necessary to get any help from insurance. We're putting pressure on our insurance provider this next year to increase mental health services, and we're, as a company, we're going to spend almost $200,000 ourselves to help families receive mental health services. We're buying additional coverage, and I think that that's one of the other problems that families are facing is they don't know how to get help.
I think, Keith, that's a really good, good point in the advocacy area that we need to do some more work on around reimbursement, for sure.
Right.
Keith, I think Keith had a question. Were you going to ask something, Keith?
Actually, going back to your original point, you mentioned kinship families. I'm sorry, it's a term I'm not familiar with. Why don't you elaborate?
Sure. So kinship, or we say relative caregivers, it really is your kin, your extended family that will parent a family member. So it could be an aunt who has a nephew whose birth parents are unable to parent, or birth mom or birth dad. And so that family member then moves into the parental role. And in the sort of foster care, and Uma probably has better statistics in her head than me, but you know, relative caregiving has increased dramatically over the years. And probably relative caregivers, and Judge Woodard, you know this and seeing it in your courtroom, probably are taking the lead in this area of particularly in foster care and taking care of children. So Uma, I don't know if you want to say anything, or Beverly, about that.
Yeah, you should.
Can you unmute them?
I actually, this is Uma. You know, with opioid epidemic kind of growing in a lot of communities, it's relatives that we're turning to place children. And the field says, right, best practices says that children thrive best in families, and if they have connections to their own home, their own birth families, they do really, really well. I mean, we also heard from Rachel, this continuous pull and push between the adoptive family and your families of origin. And so keeping kids with relatives is a good idea, but often these same relatives need a lot of help. And who's going to give them that help? And one of the, you know, it's interesting, I think it was late June, Debbie, that there was an executive order signed around expediting adoptions for children who are legal orphans in the foster care system. And it's not a large number of kids nationwide. It's certainly doable, but if there are no supports, then how do you make them successful, right? And this is, to me, the very premise of C.A.S.E. The reason you're as successful as you are is you make those placements successful. Those children, it's very difficult. And no child should be a legal orphan in the foster care system. Like, it's just wrong. It's just morally wrong. And we do, so many children end up in that space. So finding ways in which, Debbie, you can spread the work you do is absolutely imperative, I think. So.
Judge Woodard, did you want to, I know you unmuted, did you want to add something on that point, or add a comment on that?
Right, I did. I wanted to say that, yeah, a lot of our cases, we do find it difficult to find kinship care, to be honest with you. I sort of will piggyback on what the previous young lady just said, because the dynamics of the children seems to spread throughout the whole family. It's not just mother, it's the mother's sister, aunts, the grandparents. It's sort of very hard. So although we try very often to place them with a relative, it is becoming more and more difficult because it's just being passed on generation to generation. So it's just a hard thing to accomplish right now.
It's certainly, in my experience, being licensed last year as a foster parent in Montgomery County, interestingly, the majority of the people in my training class to become foster parents. So there are family members who step up and get licensed as foster parents, restrictive in that they will only accept the placement of their nieces and nephews, or there, in many cases in our class, there was a number of grandparents seeking the placement. Another question that's come in via chat, is Debbie, is how do families learn about the organization? How do people know about C.A.S.E?
Well, with a lot of hard work. You know, it's a lot of outreach, connection in schools. I mean, we really try to interface with those systems that the children and families are interfacing with. So we do a lot of outreach in the schools. We do a lot of outreach to pediatricians, to other physicians, to psychologists, and by word of mouth from one adoptive parent to another, one foster parent to another. I mean, that is our greatest referral base, is really from family to family. But you know, that's why tonight is so important, not just from a fiscal standpoint, but I suspect that when you leave us tonight, you probably can think about, there are some adoptive and foster families that you will know, or people that are connected in some ways, and we hope that you'll share the information about C.A.S.E so that, you know, I think that's when Kathleen and I thought about co-founding and starting C.A.S.E, you know, we didn't want families to wait until they're in crisis. We wanted families to know, as Rachel said, that this is a safe place that you can come anytime along your journey, and we'll be here for support. So just as we need your fiscal support, we also need your support to spread the message about what we do and who we are.
Well, and I also want to give a shout out to Melissa Rogers, who is the C.A.S.E Director of Marketing. And so a lot of how families learn about C.A.S.E is the wonderful job that Melissa and her team does with our website, with social media, with ads on Facebook, with promoting our telehealth services and some paid advertising, and also communicating and keeping in touch with all of the departments of social services, which are throughout the DC metro area, which are great sources of referrals and connection. I think we've got time for one more question, and then we'll move on to how you can help. Is there any other questions before we move on to how you can get involved in helping families when they need it most? Anything? Okay, well then I think let me go back to our presentation, and Catherine will be sharing how it is that you can get involved in helping us help more families.
Tamara, thank you. I'm hoping that this evening you learned something about C.A.S.E, or that the work that C.A.S.E is doing has been reinforced in your heart and your mind. We had several goals tonight. The first was to heighten awareness. As Debbie said, it's really important that our community know that C.A.S.E is here, because there are a lot of children and families in need. As she said, suicide rate has increased. Mental health is really a major challenge right now. And there are families that just are pulling their hair out because they just don't know what to do. But C.A.S.E is there for them. Secondly, we wanted to have this as a Friendraiser, i.e. fundraiser. As Tamara said, there is a matching opportunity that one of our supporters has put out there for us to meet. They indicated that they'll give $100,000 if we raise $50,000, and we are very much on our way to do that. But tonight we wanted to celebrate, and this was the third reason, to celebrate and to applaud the work, and maybe even to relax, have a drink, and hear some great music. So before I turn it over to Greg, the way you can give is you can click on the link in the chat and you can give that way. You can go to your internet and you can click the button donate on adoptionsupport.org. You can mail in a check to C.A.S.E, and it's in Burtonsville, Maryland, 3919 National Drive, Suite 200. Or you can find out other ways that you can match, like an employer match and etc. We are hoping that you have learned something tonight. We're hoping that you understand the severity and the need that exists with C.A.S.E. We're hoping that you'll become a part of the C.A.S.E family and be a part of how we grow going forward. So I would like Greg, who we're very, very thankful to come back on and to play some more music for us as you are thinking about or connecting with the chat to give. So Greg, I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Hey there, folks. I want to take just a moment to say thanks for tuning in and watching us. And you probably already heard from Catherine earlier that for $75, we're going to send you one of these CDs, Earthly Tones, and for $150, we're going to send you both Earthly and Heavenly Tones. Come on, come on. You want both. I know you do. I can tell. And the other thing I want to do is mention who these wonderful musicians are that are here this evening. On the drums, we have Mark Carson. On the bass, we have Pepe Gonzalez. On guitar, we have Jennifer Twombly. And I'm Greg Twombly. We're going to play a song from Cuban composer Pedro Flores called Obsession. That was Obsession. Now we're going to play a song from Brazilian guitarist Lorindo Almeida. It's called Menina Moça. Thank you, folks, for being here. It's been a pleasure to play for you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so very much. That was wonderful. So please keep this slide up. And before you leave, we promised door prizes. So I will ask Barb to come on to let us know who the door prize winners are. You're giving to us, and we want to give something back to you. Barb?
I get to, hello. Thank you, Catherine. I am excited to announce our door prize winners this evening. And just wanted to mention what we have. We have 2 prizes this evening, thanks to you, Catherine. That was just so generous of you. We have a $50 gift card to Stella Barra Pizzeria. And we also have a $50 gift card to Summer House Santa Monica. It's in the Pike and Rose in North Bethesda, also offers takeout. So without further ado, let me just make sure I have my names ready to go. Give me a second here. I picked these randomly earlier this evening. Okay. Joanne Evans. Do we have a Joanne on the call? Is she here? Can you unmute if you're here? No? Okay. Risa Levy? Is Risa with us this evening? Okay, I have a backup. I have Keith Sindall. I see you on there,
Yes.
Keith.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Do I need to pick another name?
Yes.
Okay. I will gladly pick another name. I'm going to go just randomly just down the list. I'm going to close, actually, I'm just going to close my eyes here. And I'm going to go for Brian Peterson. Is Brian on the call? I can't see the full screen. He is on the call. Brian, you are a winner.
Awesome.
Wonderful. All right. So we
Thank
will
you.
be in touch with you after the event to get you your certificates. Congratulations.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome, Barb. Deb and I, Tamara, and the whole team at C.A.S.E, thank you for joining us this evening. We wanted to heighten your awareness about the need in our community. We trust that you have become more aware. And the band is breaking down right now. We do thank Greg. We do thank them for volunteering, coming to help us, and playing that incredible music. So let's give an applause for Greg and his group. And again, I just want to thank everyone for coming. My sister, Linda, Karen, my sister-in-law, and the whole group. Uma, everybody, Keith, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting, Catherine. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for hosting. Toast to the
Very
host.
nice.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to everybody.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank
Be
you
careful,
guys so
everyone.
much
And
for
good
your
night.
Thank
support.
you, Dugans. Love you.
Thank you so